Thank you to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. The animation in Pixar Soul is absolutely stunning. If we compare this film visually to Toy Story, Pixar's first film from 25 years ago, it's clear that animation has made huge strides in terms of what's possible visually. There are a lot of elements that have improved. Textures are more detailed and higher definition, character models are more detailed, object physics and movements are more realistic, and a lot of work has been done to make the artificial cameras look and feel more like real cameras, adding realistic camera shake and movement in many places. But one of the most significant changes, and the one that stuck out to me the most when I was watching Soul, was the light. If we look back at Toy Story, we can see lighting and light in the environment in use. But the lighting is still relatively flat and simple. The light doesn't interact with the atmosphere much, the shadows are pretty basic, and there's usually only one or two light sources in a scene. And this is not to criticize Toy Story. Pixar was doing amazing work with the tools and technology that were available at the time. The way light is portrayed in Toy Story had to do with technical constraints rather than creative ability. But compare this light to Soul's. I mean, look at this rich, warm, delightful sunlight. It's not just a suggestion of sunlight, it looks real. I can almost feel its warmth. Reflections, colors, highlights, shadows, everything has the depth and complexity you would expect real-world light to have. This change didn't happen overnight with Soul though. If we look back through Pixar's work, they've been making improvements to the vibrancy of and how they use light throughout the studio's history. Just comparing the first Toy Story to Toy Story 3 even shows impressive improvements. But one of the biggest leaps in terms of bringing us the kind of lighting we see in Soul was the development of ray tracing technology. I'm not going to get into a technical explanation of ray tracing, but in basic terms it allows rays of light to actually be simulated in a digital environment. So adding a light source to a scene automatically produces reflections, bounce light, and shadows. The upshot is that you can get much more complex and realistic lighting with much less work using ray tracing. For example, in these shots, see how each little light bulb is creating its own reflection in the pictures? This kind of reflection can be generated almost automatically with ray tracing, but it would have been much more difficult with traditional 3D lighting. Another example of the improvement ray tracing can provide is the movement of multiple lights and shadows across surfaces. Look at how the light and shadow moves across the characters in this shot from Toy Story versus this shot on the subway from Soul. We can really see the changes that ray tracing brought to the scene if we compare Brave, the last Pixar film made without ray tracing, to Monsters University, the first Pixar film to use the technology. The lighting in Brave looks good, but in Monsters U there's a clear shift in the quality of the light, especially environmental lighting. In this scene from Brave, the torches on the wall look like they're producing light, but they don't really look like they're actually lighting the environment. Compare that to this scene from Monsters University where it genuinely feels like all the little lights in the scene are lighting the scene. Beyond the improving tools and technology, there's also large teams and an incredible amount of attention to detail that goes into producing the lighting on a Pixar film. For example, on Soul, cinematographer Bradford Young, whose credits include Arrival, Selma, and Solo, was brought on to consult for a variety of aspects of shooting the film, one being how to light the skin tones of the black characters. And like a real film set, lighting has to be considered throughout the whole process. In the same way a location manager might choose a location because of its access to beautiful natural light, to practically motivate light in an animated scene, there has to be lights or windows built into the digital set. And the people responsible for camera movement and composition have to keep lighting in mind and communicate with the lighting leads. But for Pixar, all this effort and the push for better and better lighting is not just an avenue to make the films prettier, but one to allow light to actually play an increasingly important role in the story. For example, look at how the change in the intensity and color of the light illuminating Joe as a cat helps cue the emotional arc of this scene. In Soul, lighting is used to help create a clear separation between the Great Before and Earth. In the Great Before, the light is very soft and diffused. It doesn't have a clear source, and it is very cool in color. On Earth, harder sunlight creates interesting complex shadows and sparkling highlights. Look for example at the spectral highlights on the passing L train or the harsh shadows underneath the car. These are the kinds of details that you won't see in the Great Before. Here, the source of the light is often clear. Sunlight mixes with practical lighting fixtures in the digital sets to produce beautiful, rich environments. But this separation isn't just something that helps define the two places for the audience, it also plays a crucial role in the storytelling. Direct practical sunlight is associated with Earth. As 22 steps out into the world for the first time in Joe's body, 22 reacts to the bright sunlight. It's something new that 22 hasn't experienced before, while Joe, who's experienced this many times, doesn't react at all. As a side note, characters responding like this, like when Joe the cat responds to the warmth of this patch of sunlight, helps sell the illusion of the light being real, and it illustrates how lighting and story have to work together early on in the process. So Soul is creating an association between direct light with a clear source and Earth, but then it also uses this kind of light to cue someone's spark. When Joe plays the piano early in the film, he is backlit by sunlight coming through a window. This is mirrored later when Connie plays trombone and stands up into a similar backlight. The U Seminar is a world of concepts and abstractions. Souls find their spark in the Hall of Everything. But while this hall has pizza, you can't really taste it. The hall might have every earthly object and activity, but there is still something you can't find in the Hall of Everything. In this moment, light is used to help cue a spark, that kind of light that is not something we ever see in the U Seminar, reinforcing the idea that 22's spark had to be found on Earth. That 22's spark wasn't an abstract concept, but something as tangible as the warmth and beauty of sunlight. But the spark is not just the object of the seed or the light streaming through the trees. It's all of these things. It's the feeling produced by this mundane beauty. The idea that this thing exists, that there is something that is not found in the Hall of Everything but that exists on Earth in this moment, is central to the film's philosophy and premise. And because this thing isn't a concept or object, it's not something that can be described in the film. It's a feeling that has to be evoked in the audience. Joe's later realization that 22's spark was the joy of everyday living while he looks at this seed would have had less impact if the way the backlight illuminates the veins in the seed wasn't so genuinely beautiful. The beauty of the film's naturalistic lighting on Earth, in contrast to the pretty but more conceptual, abstract feeling of The Great Before, helps communicate the film's philosophy that there's a unique, important quality to life on Earth that lies outside of abstraction and concepts, that there's a value in everyday living outside of our list of accomplishments. And that would be a difficult concept to convey if you couldn't show that beauty. 22's spark is getting to experience the beauty of such a simple moment. And for the audience to believe it and feel it, that moment had to actually be beautiful. And one of the most important ingredients in the beauty of this moment is the light. This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Use code ThomasFlight or click the link in the description to get 83% off and 3 months for free of your subscription to Surfshark VPN. VPNs are services that allow you to route all your internet traffic through servers all around the world. This can have a lot of privacy and security benefits and allow you to take back some of the control and privacy of your internet usage from your ISP. You can avoid things like location-based price discrimination or region-locked streaming content. If you live in a country that bans or blocks certain internet services or websites, VPNs are a crucial tool for getting around censorship. Surfshark VPN is an affordable VPN with a lot of great features and a 30-day money-back guarantee. One of my favorite Surfshark features is that on their Windows application, you can whitelist certain applications. So one application can be routing through the VPN while another is running through your normal internet. Click the link in the description or use the code ThomasFlight to get 83% off your subscription and 3 months for free. Thanks again to Surfshark for supporting this video and making it possible.